And without further ado, I will hand over to give an introduction about each of our chapter members and with our keynote speaker. So I'll go off with myself first and then hand it over to the rest of the chapter leads. I'm Sharon Palawandaram. I'm a senior machine learning consultant at Ashling Partners. I'm also the AI ambassador for UiPath Americas, MVP, and Denver chapter lead. I'll hand over the floor to Sai, Rashmi, and then Naveen.
Hey, hi team. This is Sai. So I work as a RPA manager at Dish, and so I'm the Denver chapter leader. Thank you, Sharon and Naveen, for coordinating this event and coming up uh, with this nice topic. Thank you.
Hi team, Rashmi this side, and I have recently joined this chapter, Denver chapter, and lucky to have you. And this is my, I believe, the first meeting, and I'm working as an RPA developer. I am in this RPA like from last 5 to 6 years. So, like, nice to meet you all, and we can learn something new. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. So myself, Naveen Chaklapalli. I am working as a solution architect at Ashling Partners. I'm with Ashling Partners for more than 3 years. Uh, as a solution architect, I have experience working at like Fortune 500 companies and many big firms, which are into multiple sectors like banking, real estate, and medical sectors. So I'm looking forward to share my solution architect knowledge. And thanks, Sharon and Sai, for inviting me to the Denver chapter meeting and asking me for this and setting this up.
Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you, Naveen, Sai, Rashmi, for your introductions. Without further ado, let's get into the RPA Solution Architect and how to be an RPA Solution Architect portion of it. A quick reminder is that if you have any questions, you can add them in the chat. We have a Q&A session after our presentation, and we can answer any questions that you may have in that session. So thank you, and over to you, Naveen.
Awesome. Thanks, Sharon. So I would like to speak about the agenda of this meeting, first of all, and to give a high level of what I'm going to cover in this session. So mainly, I wanted to tell what is a solution architect and what a solution architect does in an RPA space, and wanted to share some best practices, call it tips and tricks that we are currently following at our clients from Ashling's standardized perspective. And we can leave some time for question and answers as at the end. So without any further ado, I would like to go to the next slide and mention about who is a solution architect. So in my perspective, a solution architect is a professional, who oversees and designs the complex software solutions in an organization's based on the organization standards and needs. So also he evaluates the technological options that a prospective enterprise client, and guide the technical teams based on what is the technology options, seeing the technology options, guiding the technical teams, and ensuring the solution meets the organization strategy and the goals. So whatever the organization is looking for to implement a solution architect will ensure whether it is aligning with their goals and their strategy is finally met or not. So that is the overall goal. So here, mainly he's the person who mainly talks about the technology aspects of any RPA solution, and also embed any new and upcoming things like you are seeing in the current world, generative AI and the chat GPT and large language models using APIs and all these things. So whatever the technology that comes into picture, he has realize and understand whether it fits into the right picture, and whether it provides the strategy and of the particular organization or not. And what made me a solution architect, I should be very honest. I started my career as a .NET developer, and then I jumped or transitioned my career into this RPA space. I did not directly start as a solution architect. I started my career as a developer, RPA developer, and from there I became a lead developer, and then I became a solution architect. However, capability of thinking the overall solution, and I should say your visualization abilities and understanding the need of the customer, and the goals of the customer, and how soon or how quick you are able to provide the speed to market values. So these all will be coming into picture if you are considering yourself to be a solution architect. There is always a learning curve. Even developers, anyone who in this technology space has a learning curve. But I should definitely say solution architect should always be on his toes, understand the nuances and the nitty-gritty details of any things, whether it works out in this particular automation space or not, or for the particular project or not, for the particular idea or not. He should be the right person, guiding person, or the point of contact to speak about the possibility of implementing an automation solution with UiPath. So that's what will make you a solution architect, or think into the perspective of going into the line of a solution architect. Awesome. So let's go to the next slide, and I want to speak about what are the phases of a solution architecture, and what is the need and purpose of a solution architect in all these phases. So this has been designed into multiple layers. We can call it as the enable phase, prepare phase, design phase, build phase, test phase, and sustain phase. I'm going to go in depth, and I'm also going to share my best practices that we are following at our clients in the coming slides. But this is the overall the phase of what I'm going to discuss in this upcoming slides. So coming to the enable phase, right? What this enable phase mainly does is not not mainly does, but what do you mean by enablement, right? Let's say a client is ready to start, or he has some initial conversations already done with the UiPath sales team, or they already have bought the UI. So now here the solution architect plays the critical role of initializing their infrastructure setup. So understanding what is the current infrastructure that they have, and whether it suits for the UiPath needs and the requirements. And he sets up the infrastructure, like virtual machines, or installing softwares, office softwares, or any softwares like that. And he discusses and prepares a plan about how the infrastructure has to be set up there. Also, the solution architect's responsibility is to do the RPA deployment. And generally when we talk about RPA deployment, right, so there are multiple pieces for UiPath. Let take it orchestrator and robots and studios and all these things. So solution architect is the main person who gets all these connected. So he is the main point of contact to do the connections between the orchestrator to the robot, and to the studios, and how to grant the access to the developers and all these things. He also oversees the environment setup. I mean to say, generally most of the clients will have three environments, development environment, testing environment, and production environment. Mostly if the clients can't afford, they will have only two environments, calling it as development slash test, and they will have a production environment for running their production automations there. But generally it is always recommended, and it is a best practice to have environments there, like development environment, and testing environment, and production environment. So solution architect is the right person to take care of this environment setups as well. Let it be Azure virtual machines, or the hard metal boxes of directly through the remote desktops, RDPs. It can be anything like Amazon's cloud servers or anything. So he should be well aware of how to get the connections done. He is not completely responsible for creating the Azure VMs and the Amazon cloud VMs, but once he gets the information about what are the Azure VMs that are available, he should be ready to spin up a virtual machine, and he should be able to get the connections done from the orchestrator to the robot and to the assistant and all these things. So that is what I meant by RPA deployment and environment setup and orchestrator deployment options. So currently, UiPath is heavily, you know, promoting the cloud orchestrator options, but past few months or the current, there might be some old customers who are also there on the on-premise or options. So there are two. The solution architect also should see the options of what is the client has purchased about, whether it is an on-premise orchestrator option or whether it is a cloud orchestrator option. So I can give a quick example here. What makes the customers or the clients go for an on-premise and cloud orchestrator options? So I have worked for a banking client where where the security is major concern, like whatever the information that the automations are being processed should always sit in their boxes only, or in their environment only, go out anywhere, like I mean to say. So in this perspective, the banking client will always choose an on-premise solution. So if the it suits their best practices, and it suits their best possibility of running their automation. So that is where the solution architect should be able to command, or should be able to advocate on what kind of deployment options of orchestrator should be used or leverage. Coming to any other clients, like we can say some real estate clients or any other sort of clients, so they can run their automation. So cloud orchestrator might be a best solution for them, or possible solution for them in this case. So he should also be able to provide some ideas, or how to deploy these orchestrators around these things. Also, when a client is ready to move on-premise orchestrator to cloud orchestrator, so we call it as migration, right? Migration from on-premise to cloud. So that means they are upgrading their orchestrator options. So solution architect should be able to provide design a plan, like how should we be moving those automations that are already in the on-premise to cloud. So he should leverage the functionalities of orchestrator manager, and in moving the assets, processes, and all these things. And if there are any pipelines of moving the code, pipelines for where the Git integration has already been done, he should also include them into the program as well. And he should be first visualizing how to do the migration from on-premise to cloud, and understand the nuances of it, and he should also be able to do those things. So he is pretty much involved in those kind of conversations too. This is all about enable phase. And going to the next one, prepare phase. So let's take a project has been ready, and it has been ready for the implementation phase. So there will be a preparation phase here. So where the solution architect should be advocating about the best practices and coding standards from his past experiences, or whatever that works within, which suits the best options of logging methodologies, and not using certain things. And here we can use the workflow analyzer that is already inbuilt or included solution within the UiPath Studio. So those kind of coding standards and best practices can be leveraged. Also, there can be a repository of all the points, like a spreadsheet, where solution architect can come up with, okay, these best practices that we have been following, and he can provide those spreadsheets with their developers who are ready to start or kickstart a project, an automation project. And dev effort estimation. So this is one of the important topic I want to stress about, and I also wanted to we are doing this currently at Ashley Partners. So it also is a best it's like one of the tips and tricks that I wanted to share with you guys in the next slide. So I'll save that for a minute. And collaboration with the team BA, business analyst, and the developers. So it is the obvious thing. So he is the main bridge between the business analyst and the developers in understanding the business solution and converting the technical aspects of it and designing the technical solution of it and discussing that with the developers. So that is the collaboration that needs to be had. That's a solution that needs to provide there to the team. And feasibility study and process optimization. So the business solution can be anything, but the solution architect should be able to understand the feasibility, and he should be able to come up with from his past experience, this solution will be feasible in the long run or not, or is it something that they want to run it just for one time. So so he wants to preach on that as well, like feasibility study and process optimization, like how he can optimize the process. There can be many examples in certain things, like using what kind that needs to be used, whether the external packages are supported or are they required to be used only UiPath. So generally we'll be using UiPath promoted packages in the code. So whether there will be any requirement for outside packages to be used, or are there any for creating own packages own for the reusable components purpose, or for the reusability of the code purpose. And he should also be creating or setting up the technical meetings and planning meetings with the developers and the BA as well. So technical meetings, I mean to say, explaining the how to work on this solution and how the different aspects or the different points of different small workflows can be developed and all these things. So those will be covered in this technical meetings, and how to plan. So BA and solution architect should be defining about when the project should be multiple phases, like how the project should be going live, and when how soon the business needs it to be going live, and whether the targets can be met or not if we are going in the pace of development. If that is not required, he will be promoting, or he will be asking for including multiple projects, so that they can share the work and get the task done, or meet the SLA of the project, SLA timelines and deadlines of the project in a timely manner. So these are all the things that are covered in the prepare phase. And now, as I told, I will be stressing a little bit on the dev effort estimation. I will also show you a small demo of how we are doing this at Ashley Partners today. And so this is the slide that I wanted to cover, effort estimation. So we are based on the client requirements and client suitabilities, we can use Jira or anything, but we are currently using Azure DevOps here. So whatever the users or the projects that are created, those are created as epics. And whatever the feature, we call dispatcher and performer and reporter as features there. And inside that, these are log into web app and scrape the data. These are called stories or product backlogs. And once these are created by the solution architect, so once the prepare phase is enabled, and once these things are created on the Azure DevOps, he will be responsible for conducting some estimation sessions. So what do I mean by an estimation session? And we'll eventually do one right after this. So what do I mean by an estimation session is, it is a technical session, we can call it as a technical session, and he will be involving the developers. Let's say at a client's space, there are developers working on a project, on a multiple projects, not a same project, but on multiple projects. So on this effort estimation session, which we generally run every week, once a week, every day, once a week, every week. So what the is responsible to do is, he should be responsible for coming up with all the user stories, and he will be creating a estimation poker session. I will show you that. And he will be asking how much effort would you think this would take. And these are the Fibonacci numbers that we are estimating currently. So let's say 5 developers have joined that estimation session, and out of 5 developers, 3 developers have chosen logging into web app might take 2 days, because we have to understand what are the UI elements of this, and what are the selectors that might be used, whether the dynamic selectors are possible or not, and all these things. And the other 2 developers might select 3 days, because they are new to this application. They do not know how this thing can be created, or they might be visualizing of creating a reusable component around this, thinking that why don't we create a library and implement this in this project itself. So in that case, so we have to take the average of these 2 people, like average would be like 2.5, right? So the solution architect should be responsible for creating the estimation, so which gives a clear idea of how much a user story point would take. If it is a simple user story, this can go into the verge. And we are also creating the user stories for UAT and hypercare stories. So what do I mean by that is, so generally after the project completion, the UAT phase will be anyways discussed. So that means the business will be talking with the business analyst and completing the user acceptance testing, right? So those will be pre-estimated at 5 points. That means 2 to 3 days of effort will be taken. So if in case the estimate has been increased, or the UAT has taken a little longer, so then we come back to this user story and we increase the user story capacity to 8. So that we can understand, or the estimation timelines on the dashboards which will be reported based on this requirement will be easily identified by the business analyst and the product owners. So the client will be easily understanding and tracking whether the project is going in a particular pace or continuous pace or not, or are there any things that we are missing as a target deadlines, or are we on the track. So in the same thing goes for the hypercare as well. Hypercare is something that we provide after once we go live, right? So at Ashling Partners, what we have the go live happens, the main development team who has worked on the particular process automation development, though those development team members will be providing the hypercare for two weeks. So we will be estimating that as a 3 point. That means 1 or 2 days. That means the developer doesn't need to sit on the complete 2 weeks. If some issue arises in the production environment, so based on that, we can define, okay, this goes into the hypercare, and the business analyst might ask, or the business team might ask, okay, this is not working as expected. So the developer will go back, work on that particular solution. So even if the developer thinks that, okay, it is going to increase his work of effort of 1 or 2 days, he's going to intimate us, solution architect and the business analyst. So we'll go back and increase the timeline of the user story points of this particular hypercare story, or we will be creating a new user story of hypercare 2 or something like that. So without further ado, I wanted to show you a quick demo of how we are currently doing this. So this is the DevOps DevOps board, and here we call it as backlogs. And in this, we will be tracking everything based on epics, features, and backlogs items, as I demoed you previously. So why don't we create a new sample project? So we'll call it as sample project 2, and we'll add it to the top. And we are also going to add the performer. We are also going to add the feature for this sample project, that the feature for this epic. So it can be dispatcher process, and we can also add one more. How many other epics, the features that you wanted to create for this epic, you can perform them. So this will be a performer process. So I'm not going into the nitty-gritty details of how the dispatcher process and performer process is defined. So this will be identified by the solution architect at the design phase itself. And inside this, he will be creating the product backlogs, like login to the web app. And he will be writing the web app requirements, web app, whatever the solution example, any stocks, brokerage website. I'm not giving the particular example, but that's what. So login by clicking on the by navigating to the URL, and also enter the credentials, login credentials provided. So here we are also give the acceptance criteria like given, when, and then. So given means URL is ready to access, and when the login credentials are working, then automation should enter the login credentials and click on login button. So if you write the user stories in depth of like this, right? So it will be easy and clear for the for the developer also to understand, and we will be easy. It will be easy for a solution architect to put the same user story in a solution design document. I will discuss that in the coming things. But first of all, we will be creating a user story like this, and we will be saving. I mean, we are not assigning it to the developer right away until it completes developer estimation session. We are not going to assign it to whoever the developers that is going to take. And once you save this, so it will be created like this, and the effort has not been estimated, right? So we can create a quick one more user story of scraping the data from the uh, sales module or something. And you will write the sample text of what is the description that needs to do, what scraping methodology needs to be used, and we'll also write the acceptance criteria like given, when, then. So it will be neat and easy for the developers to identify this, right? And we will save this. So we can create how many our user stories that will be sitting in the dispatcher process, and we can create how many our performer, how many user stories that will be sitting in the performer process. So this is how we'll do. And how we are doing the running the estimation session. Here you see the estimation poker, right? So how we are doing this is we will select these two items and we will go to estimate work items, which will be making my estimation board ready. And I will create a round title for that particular day. That means 04/12/2023, and it is going to be a build estimation, right? So, and we will be selecting the cards based on the Fibonacci evaluation that I just showed you previously. And only the creator will be reviewing the item. So SA will be as the SA will be the estimate playing the poker. So he will be the guide who will only to create and change the work items there. So once you create this, it will be pulling those two user stories into this board, right? And you will be sharing this link, you will be sharing this copied link to your developers team, into this developer team, and all the developers will be logging into this board, and they will be selecting the numbers, Fibonacci numbers, as I told. So you will be asking, hey, we are estimating the story of login to the web app, how much efforts that you would this story might take. So he will be estimating based on the user story and the given, when, then acceptance criteria that you discuss at the user story level. And based on that, so if he says that the SA will be ready to reveal this option, and I'm currently showing only one option, but there will be multiple votes that will be coming up here, and he will be selecting 2 points based on the discussion. So there can be a possibility of 2, 3, 5, all these things, and we can also discuss on based on those confirmed finalizations. So the SA will be selecting the right average of this, and this story point will be discussed, and effort will be estimated there. Let me go back to the board and I'll show you once this effort is estimated how this user story looks like, right? Okay, I'll go to the backlogs. I'll go to the sample project. I'll go to the dispatcher and this one. You see the effort is being estimated as 2. So this is how the effort estimation will be done. And if you do this as a standard practice, it will be easy for the business team also to understand how the effort estimation is going on and how much time the developers might take this particular thing. So yeah, that's it. And let's go to the next one. So this is about effort estimation, and coming to the prepare phase, right? It is all about coming about the design phase. The prepare phase has been previously discussed, and we are also going to do the developer estimation. And here the design phase comes into picture. So based on the overall, the SA will be responsible for designing the solution design, that is the SDD document. I will also show you how we are going to design a solution design document based on the UiPath template. So that is ready. But it will be much easier, if you do this effort estimation prior to this and you create all these user stories. It will be much easier for the solution architect to create the solution design document, because nitty-gritty details and the workflows or the simple small workflows are already predefined. So that is the advantage of creating the user stories and developer estimation efforts like that, and also identifying the reusable components. So as I told you, the login, we discussed about a previous login component, right? So we can also think on a high level, like why don't we create that login component as a reusable component? So this has to go to a specific login activities reusable component, and there can be a library project that can be created around this, and we have to include that into the solution design document as well. And configuration, queues, assets, and repos. Also, the solution architect should be able to identify what are the queues that needs to be created within this process. So let's take an example of a process of logging into some web application, collecting the data and downloading the data into that, and uploading that information into the queues, and then it is publishing that information into another application. So I'm just using some very generic high level overviews, but the solution architect should be able to identify what kind of queues that are needs to be required, and queues are needs to be created, and what are the assets that will be going into this, and creating code repositories that it can be GitHub or it can be Azure DevOps Git or anything like that, GitLab or anything, whatever that you use. Also, what we are currently implementing is we are giving SDD walkthroughs, solution design document walkthroughs to the developers, where the developers will be, the solution architects will be on the same page, so that it's the duty of the solution architect to design the SDD document, but the developer might be understanding or interpreting that design in a different way, right? So we can set up a 30 minutes or a 1 hour long session here and clarify the design detailed process steps that are sitting inside the solution design document, and the developers will ask questions. Hey, I'm thinking to build this component in this way, like using some dynamic selectors there and using some assets there. So they both can discuss and come to a same page, and they can create more code and efficient automation solutions there. So, and this also helps the there can be a possibility of overviewing about multiple projects. The solution architect might not be thinking about some reusable components which can be leveraged. So the possibility is, once they discuss both, they can both identify the reusable components they can add to the project level or enterprise level there. So this is one of the good concepts to have a SDD walkthroughs with the developer or development team. Like it can be a 2 or 3 or 5 developers in the team. So have a SDD walkthrough there. And going to one template of the SDD, that means how are we going to design a solution design document. So let me show you this by opening the generic template. So this is the UiPath suggest of a solution design document, and here, as you know, all the table of contents will be looking like what is the project name, what are the project workflows, and all these things can be looked into the 6th page and all these things. But we will be writing all this, like as a solution architect we will be preparing this SDD document and taking care of all the remaining things. Also, what are the automated process details, whether it is a back office robot or a front office robot, or both, mix of both front office and back office. Back office robots are generally which are only communicating with some databases and pulling the information. Front office robots means which are communicating with some web application, UI interactions, or desktop applications, or whatever, name it. You can name it whatever you want. So he will be writing up all the process names and the orchestrator used, whether it is an on-premise orchestrator, and what is the version that is used, and whether it is a solution is scalable or not, or I mean to say, based on the SLAs, the task has done within a day of time. So in that case, the solution architect should be able to identify whether this should be scaled to run on multiple virtual machines or not, like scaling up the robots. So he has to design the solution based on that level. And what is the UiPath version used, whether it is 2020 or 2019, whatever the version that is being used. And runtime guide, this is mainly about how much, this comes from the business analyst based on the discussions from the requirements of the business team. So they will be identifying what is the, how many times the process has to run, and what are the input data that is being provided, and what is the expected output, and all these things go into this particular table. And going to the project name and all these things, like what is the project name. So generally it is better to have a naming convention based on development environment one, and whether it is EMEA instance or North America instance or a pack. So based on this, all these things will be defined. And environment prerequisites, whether it is a Windows 7 license or Studio license or Microsoft, whatever the prerequisites that is required will be going into here. And repositories, wherever the code repository is being stored, it can be GitHub, Azure DevOps, GitLab, or whatever, that will be going here, and all these things. Project workflows is something that will help a lot on the previous user developer estimation stories that I showed. So if you create the user stories ahead of time, right? So this will save a lot of time for you. You can just copy paste them, but you have to define where does this go, like whether does this go in the initialization block of the RE framework, or does it go into the transaction get transaction block, or does it go into the process transaction block, or where does it go, and what are the packages. So are we going to use any external packages like Zendesk reports or Indigo packages, or whatever the other external packages, Microsoft Office packages. So those are the things. It is always suggested to identify not to use external packages which are developed by some third-party developers, because there might be a possibility of data leak. So discuss about the developers and the feasibility of not using them, or develop those reasons in-house, so that they can save some efforts. That is my just recommendation or suggestion that I would give. And also architectural and structure of the master project. So here we will be providing the architectural diagram based on how the dispatcher and performer flows will be going. So that is a task of a solution architect to easily identify them. And are there any future enhancements? So let's say it is always noticed that a process which has been completely developed is not a complete product until you do the complete until you pass the UAT, right? At the UAT phase, okay, I think I missed this enhancement, I missed this step of automation. So why can't you include this? So at that point of time, we have to discuss that with the business analyst and the product owner, saying that, hey, this is going to impact our project timelines. So do you want us to proceed for, or do you want to consider this as a nice to have, and throw it into the enhancement phase of next enhancement phase of the process or automation? Or the business is very confident on, if this does not get included into the current automation, they do not see any value on behind this. So we have to discuss that, and we have to create the user stories again based on this, and get that estimated, and get started on implementing that including that into the source code as well. So think that this is the way or best practice to record all your future enhancements and improvements here. Whatever the short names or short forms that we used in this document will be recorded here, like back office robot, front office robot, and orchestrator. What does this do? And state machine, what does the state machine do? It has a sequential flow of as a simulator flow chart, like that. And this is about how to design a solution as DD document. So, and going to the next one, design consideration layers. So this is something that you have to consider while doing your design. So there are multiple layers here, like framework layer. So framework layer, to remember that it only simply breaks down the transaction business processes. So wherever the transaction is going, so that will be considered as a framework layer. And business process layer, that means it is integrating with different flow charts, or we are going from one web application to another web application. So all the source code or automation activities that are developed in that flowchart have to be integrated into this another flowchart of connecting to another back office database or something. So we have to combine these, which will be coming in or talking about the business process layer. And service layer, that means exception handling. So we should always be note of this, like how the exceptions to be handled based on whether it can be business exception which are identified by the business team. That means there is a possibility of this information will not be populated, or there will be a pop-up that will be showing up when you click this button. So we call it as a business exception. If that, so how should you handle that? So those all kind of things go into service layer. And also system exceptions or application exceptions, which will be unnoticed based on, they are not defined based on the previous design. So those are all going to this service layer acceptations considerations. Layer, process layer means consisting of multiple components. So it can be sequences or flowcharts working with multiple applications, and it can be of a web application or a desktop application and all these things. So these go into the consideration of application process layer. And application screen layer means using reusable component. Application process layer will consist of the input and output arguments using invoke code operations there. But application screen layers means developing the complete processing that happens within an application into a reusable components. So that is considered into an application screen layer. And data layer, accessing with a local data, call it config file data or a storage bucket, or that is sitting in the orchestrator or anything, and orchestrator, calling the orchestrator asset and all these things. So these are just for your reviewing purpose. Whenever a solution architect wants to consider these design layers, he should keep them in mind. Not to stress, just wanted to cover these layers as well. And going to the next one, this is one of the important thing that I wanted to like talk about. So how to identify the reusable components, right? So generally there can be in previous automations that are already there in the particular client environment, but or else there might be, the client might be starting very fresh and they don't know about these things, right? So this is something which can be used for both the past automations or the automations that are being newly developed. There are 4 phases here, like qualify, build, merge, and track. This is a very big concept, but I will try to explain this in a very brief thing. So in this 4 phases, the qualify phase mainly gives the concept of recording the possible reusable components which can be identified at the solution design level, or any level, right? So also taking some time to open the previous implemented projects and identifying, looking at the workflows to identify whether this can be developed as a reusable component or not. So those all will be recorded in a spreadsheet. We can have a team of moderators, so we can call like team lead developers or senior developers, and a solution architect can also act as a moderator. And moderators, what they do is they will approve whether this qualifies for the next phase, that is build phase or not. Don't get confused, this is especially about the reusable components and the phases that we are currently implementing at one of our clients. And in the build phase, what we are going to do is creating like an individual branch on the Git repository, and managing the UiPath dependencies to be on the standard version, so that the developers can upgrade or downgrade the package dependency packages based on the requirements there, and pulling the codes. So as I told, there can be a possibility of identifying the reusable components from the past projects, past implemented projects, right? So whether it can be a process that can be pulled from the previous project, or it should be created as a new code library code snippet, and write the clear of what is the purpose of the code component that is being created. And coming to the next level, so here we will be creating on the feature branch of the library on the Git repository, but we have to commit that to the main branch, right? So here we can have a set of approvers, library approvers or production approvers we can call. So the moderators who acted already there as moderators will be acting as approvers here. So they will be checking the code quality before merging them. So whether the library component has followed the right naming conventions or not, or whether the workflows are defined, library workflows are defined in a way, and the logging methodology is in the right way or not. So these all will be considered, and then they will be merging that to the production branch, like the main branch. And coming to the track, right? So it is very easy to say a client or a business team that we have implemented so many reusable components, but how do they know how many reusable components are being utilized, right? So what we are doing currently is we are writing these reusable components to a SQL data table, SQL data table. So whenever these reusable components are being utilized in one of the projects, right? So there is a reusable component that sits inside these workflows, inside these library components, and we are identifying each and every, we are logging every time that is being tracked or being leveraged in a particular project. So it gives the identification to the business team, okay, this is a reusable component that is being used these many times, and we can generate reports, SQL transactions as well. So where the business team can clearly identify, okay, this is the metrics that I'm getting by, or the time that has been saved by using this reusable component. So that is the concept of implementing the tracking methodology here. So this is the complete that we are following at Ashling Partners, like how to identify the reusable components, and how we can implement this into 4 phases, like qualify, build, merge, and track. Awesome. And going to the next one. So let's go back to the phases of our solution architecture. So coming to this is a build phase where the build phase will be triggered, kickstarted, and the developers will be taking up the user stories that we have previously showed, that we have created, and they will be starting on their working. So now the solution architect's role is to monitor the developers, whether they are having any troubles or some technical like are they struggling to get some things done in a better way or something like that. So the developers will right away reach out to the solution architect, or solution architect might be reaching out to them in the daily stand-up meetings. Hey, how is the build going on, like that. Or and also he troubleshoots any critical issues. So there might be issues that can be occurring with the web applications. Generally they might go down, or so solution architects acts as a liaison, or he talks to the business analyst to or the team support team who is working on this critical issues of getting the application up and running. So these are kind of the troubleshooting of any critical issues. And so we always at Ashling Partners, we always tell our developers to push their code of working code every day to the source control, let it be Git or anything, Azure DevOps Git or anything like that. So it is a standard practice that we ask them to do, and not to the direct branch, but feature branch that they are going to create. So this is something that we preach them to do every day. So this is what the solution architects does in a build phase. And coming to the next phase, right, testing phase. So here, once the development has been done, so it is the duty of solution architect to do the code review and add code, whether it has been developed based on the solution design document, or the instances that has been discussed in the solution design document. He can leverage the workflow analyzer here, or he can do a manual code review. But what we are going to do is, if you identify this block, so he pulls the code from the repo, or whatever the Git repo that can be. He does pull the code from there, and he reviews records the comments in the code review template. So it can be any template. It can be a standard template or a generalized template based on your requirement. So you can create a template call it as a code review template, and he records, okay, in this particular initialization block, you did not create the name, you did not use the naming convention properly, or you are hard coding the asset values like right here. So for this purpose, you can it is always suggested to use a workflow analyzer with respect to rules that you wanted to set up, or you can do a manual code review and give this code review where he clarifies the required code changes and makes the necessary code corrections. And again, once at one last step, he will re-verify whether those changes were made in the particular instances recorded in this. So let's take, in the code review template, there are 10 code review lines or code review points that uh, the solution architect has given to the developer. So once the developer confirms them, he made those changes to them, he will go back and only verify those 10 points, not the whole project again, so that it saves some time, right? So that's what code review and auditing process currently we are following. And DSD sign off, the development standard design document. So this is currently designed, provided or developed by the developer who has worked on the project. Uh, I mean, it is not completely required for any, based on the requirement of the business. We can go ahead and ask the developer to do this, but it is a standard practice to follow the DSD and get the sign off on that, like how many assets are created and all these things, and how many settings are used, and how the config file is created, and all these things will be going into this DSD document. And functional testing sign off, like we can call it as unit testing, whether the unit testing has been performed by developers properly, and the UAT has it been given to the UAT phase. Uh, Actually, the UAT phase will be tackled by the business analyst and the developers, but functional testing sign off is something the solution architect has to oversee, whether the unit testing has been passed or not, or the functions are correctly working or not in the design, right? And going to the next one, sustain phase. So once the project has been, once the process has been completely passed with the UAT and it is ready to go live, so he takes care of the change management. Change management like means many enterprise clients will have change management board meetings. Like a board member will be joining there and asking about, what are the security concerns that have been followed, and are there any data leaks that you are following there. There will be certain governance documents that will be required to filled up by the solution architect, and he will be presenting them in that meeting, and the board will be approving, the change management board will be approving them, and based on the approval, the project will be going to live. And after that, monitoring will be taken care. So generally, we have a separate team to monitor the projects. We call it as robotic operation center, but it is also uh, duty of helping solution architect to help the monitoring team, whether they are able to do that monitoring properly, or are they having any problem in identifying the logs and all these things. And also support and hypercare, as I told, it is just the purpose of the developers to sit the direct support until the hypercare period of 2 weeks has been completed. So this is something that we are following there. So this ends my explanation of how to be a solution architect and what does a solution architect does in a day-to-day life. So I hope this helps you in promoting your careers, or joining or starting your career for looking as a working as a solution architect at any RPA firm. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Naveen, for going over highly, diverse explanation on being a solution architect, sharing your personal experience. I hope everyone gained a little bit of knowledge if you're interested to be a solution architect with Naveen's experience and expertise. If you further want to learn about solution architecture, UiPath offers a solution architect free certification. I've linked that in the chat. And a couple of other things here as well. If you want to start off with the UiPath Community Edition, to start off with any RPA skills, that UiPath offers a free community edition where you can get trained and certified. I've shared that link as well. And if you want any help, the UiPath forums offers a very interactive community where we can talk on our problems, you can apply to your problems, and you can get solutions as well. And if you want to connect to all of us, the chapter leads and SMEs, I'll share their LinkedIn profiles as well. If you can join and talk, if you have any other questions that comes across after this conversation. And we do also have a couple of Q&A questions that we have, the audience has asked. Naveen, I'll go through them and let's see what they are. Christian asks one question. It's, do
Sure.
you have multiple developers work for every estimate? And does that estimate turnaround time to providing an estimate to client?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good question, Christian. Generally, as I told, the developer estimation sessions, we ask all the developers on working on that particular client. Let it be 10 developers. In our case, it is like 12 developers who are working at our client, one of our clients. Of them, including me and the business team, will be joining that effort estimation sessions, and we will be playing that estimation poker, which will be easy for, if I have any clarifications that needs to be made, the business analyst will be there with me to clarify those questions based on the user stories that are discussed. I hope that answered your question.
Great. Thanks, Naveen. A couple of more questions I'm going to shoot out to you.
Sure.
Balakrishna asks, while designing the solution, do we require to create high-level functional diagram and low-level flowcharts?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Balakrishna. I should be very honest with you. It all depends on your rapport that you have with the developer and you. So if you want to just leave it on to the developers just by creating those high level and low level diagrams, it is clearly okay to do that, so that the developer might understand that, and he can go ahead. But as I showed, what currently we are doing at Ashling is, we are setting some SDD walkthroughs. So walkthrough sessions, that means the solution architect will be sitting with the developer and explaining the process detail in a step by step manner, so that in this case we don't require a low level design diagram. I know where you're going here, but if the project team is very big, and if you don't have enough time to do that, so it is always suggested to go for a low level diagram and ask the developers to figure out, or ask any questions if they have. But yeah, and also at certain points we have at some projects, at some client projects, we have 2 or 3 solution architects working for a client. So in that case, it is always better to have this SDD walkthroughs with the development team.
Cool. Thanks, Naveen. I have one more question, but it's broken into 3 parts by Hardik. One of the questions is, who does process mining and discovery? Is it by the solution architect or some other role? The second one is, at which stage or phase of RPA process lifecycle solution is the architect involved?
Um, so as I told you, right, for taking up the first question, process mining can be, uh, we can have a subject matter expert on the process mining, but the solution architect should have a high level overview of what the process mining solution is expected to do, and what is the main idea of utilizing the UiPath process mining solution, so that he can get the ball moving. So that's what I think. And going to the next one, sorry, can you come again with the question?
Yeah, sure. I'll come again with the last one. At what stage does an RPA process lifecycle, sorry, at which stage or phase of RPA process lifecycle is a solution architect involved? That's the question.
It totally depends on the requirement and the team, I should say. The smaller the team size, the solution architect wears multiple hats. The larger the team size, the solution architect will be responsible only once the automation solution is ready for after the design phase. So from starting from the design, that's what I say. Uh, I mean to say. Uh, Yeah, as you see, these are the phases. These are the same phases for an RPA lifecycle as well. So he can be involved at any level. So, currently at Ashling Partners, we do everything in a structured manner. So at enable phase, we have our like marketing team and the sales team having discussed with the uh, client and having this enabled, and then our solution engineering team will have this enablement phase done, or we have process enablers who can do this, as platform engineers who can do the enabling also. So as I told you, right, larger the team, the more signified the level of our solution architect will be playing, but smaller the team, the solution architect will play wear multiple hats.
Great answer, Naveen. Thank you. We've got one last question is from Hardik again, is that do you prepare the PDD before going to the design phase?
uh, if I'm not like explaining that question, PDDs generally are designed, developed by the business. But the business and solution architect also will be involved there in designing the process design documents. But generally, it is coming onto the shoulders of the business analyst.
Great. I think we've answered all our questions in our Q&A
Awesome.
session. Thank you, Naveen, for spending your
Thanks.
time today to give us a great session on how to be a solution architect. And thank you to our audience for spending time to attend this event. And you can expect more events from us. You can go to our Denver chapter and see our upcoming events. We are open to suggestions. And if you want to see any other events, and if you're curious with any other topics, just reach out to us and let us know, and we would be happy to host some events to gain more knowledge skills to our community. So thank you all once again for joining, and hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.